Welcome to a Syndicate Talks, and welcome to mastering short term. What is short term and short term real estate? It's all about making money, first of all, with what you have. In other words, investing in your own property, your own time. It doesn't take more money or doesn't take money to invest to be able to make more money. It takes starting with the resources that you actually have. From there, if you develop a passion for real estate, and real estate is normally prohibitively expensive, enormously expensive to get involved in, and the level of mistake and the price that we can pay financially when it comes to real estate is very, very high. So if you start with the right information, the right education, the right support, the mistakes become fewer and fewer, they come further and further apart, and you profit faster as well. In the short-term rental game, it is all about having the right attitude. We all know experiences that we have had at great restaurants, at fantastic hotels, when we have had an experience in a customer service setting, retail store, etc., that this feeling we're left with can carry us for days and weeks and months and puts us into a spot where we want to, in turn, share that with other people. Well, in short term, Airbnb rentals, etc., customer experience is the highest level of experience. Unlike major hotels, unlike major hotel chains, you have one experience with one customer one time that can make or break your entire business for the whole time that you are in business. So the moment you think to yourself, I've got a spare room, or I've got some time, or my house isn't being used all the time, or I'd like to make a couple of extra bucks, or I happen to be fortunate and maybe I have an extended property, I have extra property, I have a vacation trailer, etc., that's not being used so often. And as we can understand in the marketplace we're in right now, anything that we can do to give somebody else just a small break, where we can make a couple of extra dollars, and more importantly, where we understand what it is that we're getting into, what we're obligated, what we should be doing appropriately and properly, and in return, being able to maximize that so that we actually keep some money into our pocket is incredibly important. So whether you decide or have ever thought about getting into short-term renting a space that you have, Airbnb, I have a bedroom, I have a house, etc., that you decide that it's going to become a passion and you want to develop it, and now thanks to family, friends, some associates that you actually have access to one or two or three properties that are not your own, or it becomes a full-time avocation. It is your primary business, and you operate with 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100 properties. In other words, you're taking care of a lot of different places, and it's become its whole business. It all starts with fundamental education and information. And our expert, the panelist that we've brought in today to talk primarily about that, now she got here, is Elizabeth Sickels with Elizabeth Maora. Now, Elizabeth Maora, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, is mostly headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the United States to start with. But don't let that dissuade you. She has properties all over the continental United States, and she is one of the rare individuals that not only regularly hosts properties with Superhost status, in other words, one of the top recognitions for standards of excellence in practice in properties from Airbnb, but she is actually a super host, which means that her entire business practice, from the way she cleans to the way she organizes, manages, hosts, greets guests, etc., is at such a high standard that Airbnb has recognized her as one of the very, very few. And she takes her time now educating people on this. Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you for having an opportunity and finding time to come and talk today on a Syndicate Talks about short-term rental and property rental, because in our marketplace, somebody's got to be able to make a couple extra dollars somewhere, because money's hard to come by right now.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I will go ahead and share my presentation. Do any of you guys currently have short-term rentals in your properties? No? Okay. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to go through an industry overview, the current landscape, the neighborhoods that we look for, regulations, and then the evaluation of properties. So what to look for a great short-term vacation rental. So you're going to hear me use those terms interchangeably, either vacation rental or short-term rental, meaning the same thing. Just a little bit about me. My undergrad is engineering, and then I have a master's. I have an MBA. I spent 15 years in corporate and traveled all over the world, mainly for Fortune 100 companies, and then left corporate almost 4 years ago to go figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and decided on this. So my team and I, that's a picture of my team. We are Superhost. We also have Airbnb Plus status, which I'll talk a little bit more about that. Last year, we grossed over 550,000 in bookings. And we have a real emphasis on the guest experience. So we have over 1,200 reviews, and our average is 4.8 out of 5 stars. So we strive very hard. We do a lot of things in the short-term rental real estate market. So we do construction consults. We do property analysis, design and furnishings of the properties. And then we also do traditional property management, because in all reality, that's a walk in the park compared to doing short-term rental management. And then I do a lot of public speaking and coaching. So what's going on in the vacation rental industry? First of all, Airbnb, this is pre-COVID, they were valued at somewhere between $31 and $32 billion. They're certainly the behemoth in the OTA, so the online travel agents world. They are in 192 countries and 81,000 cities, and then they were at over 7 million listings. So huge company. Airbnb at least was poised to be all things travel, and there were a lot of hints about an Airbnb airline as well. So I have some predictions for what's going to happen. So Mitch used the term Superhost. So what a Superhost does is that it actually, on average, you get 22% more per night for that booking. And there are currently 4 standards, which these sound really easy, but at scale, they are not. So one is to host at least 10 stays in a year, respond to guests very quickly, and maintain a response rate of 90% or higher. So for us, we normally respond to a guest within an hour. And that's on almost all of our listings as well. It's also that you have at least 80% 5-star reviews. And then they just updated this about 6 months ago to where you could have 1 cancellation. Prior to this, you were not allowed to have any cancellations. And then Airbnb Plus is a designation even higher than Superhost. And it's a very long process to be approved for Airbnb Plus. It took us 6 months from the time that we were notified. The good thing about Airbnb Plus is that you have 7 times more listing views and that you have 70% more nights booked. And it's very prestigious, as only 0.04% of all properties on Airbnb actually have this designation. So these are 2 things to look for or to strive for if you do become a host. So what's going on in the industry? So Marriott last year announced Homes and Villas, and they came into our space of doing vacation rentals. We also had Vacasa. Vacasa is a company that's located on the west side of the US. Pre-COVID-19, they were managing over 23,000 properties worldwide. And they have raised over $500 million. They've raised $525 million in VC capital on expansion. And the thought was that they were going to go IPO this year as well. So their model is that the clients own the properties and then they do all of the hosting and managing. And how they have grown is they have bought up a lot of the smaller, professionally managed, and even some of the smaller mom and pop places around the world as well. Post-COVID, though, we're going to talk about them, but they were the behemoth as well. Airbnb had signed a deal just the the beginning of this year with the Olympics. So they were set to replace hotels for the upcoming Summer Olympics that were supposed to be in Japan. Now, obviously, they've been postponed, but that deal to them was worth just over $500,000 US. And what made that so, there's a lot of things that make that significant, but one of the things was the fact that Airbnb was supposed to go IPO, so initial public offering this year. Since COVID-19, there have been absolutely no talks about that whatsoever. So along with that, about 3 weeks or so after all of the cancellations started, all of the quarantine started, Airbnb raised $1 billion. And what's really interesting about this is, number one, so this was at a 10% interest, which is higher than normal for them. And it also reduced their valuation from pre-COVID of between $31 billion, $32 billion to only $18 billion. So that's a pretty significant difference, especially if you're the CEO of that company. They've also announced, if you guys have seen this in the news, about $250 million that they're going to be doing in refunds. That was announced about a month ago, and we actually a little bit over a month ago, and we have yet to see any of that refund money. So there's kind of a lot of speculation about what's going on with that. I think we'll get it. I'm not concerned about it, but it's just churning the waters a little bit more for Airbnb right now. Next month, so in just a couple of days, they're going to be giving their enhanced cleaning initiative. And you can opt into this as a host or elect not to, and there will be penalties for that. So what does their new cleaning initiative look like? They want only approved products. They want the cleaning folks to be using PPE, so personal protection equipment, such as masks and gloves. They're also, depending on what you register for, what you opt in for, they're going to require 72 hours between guests. And then there will be supposed to be a 24-hour waiting period before your cleaning crew is actually allowed to enter the property. So some major changes in the cleaning. And then also what we can do for guests. So if we have 3 days between when we can welcome guests again, that's going to have definitely some economic impact. So what's going on with the rest of the whole travel, the OTAs? Vacasa, the company I spoke about earlier, they have furloughed their employees for 90 days. And for this month of April, they canceled all reservations worldwide. Sonder and Domio, they do arbitrage. So what that means is that they rent, in most cases, some higher end apartments in big cities. So they've done significant discounting. And then TripAdvisor just announced that they are reducing their global workforce by 25%. And then they're closing their Boston office as well as their San Francisco office. So while this might sound really bleak, I do have great news for us. But also and at least in the US, I tried to find some things on Canada, but in the US, we are going to have, and actually there's already litigation in place on some different states. So for example, in the state of Florida, the state shut down vacation rentals, but allowed hotels to still have guests. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how all of this plays out. So what are my predictions for the vacation rental industry? Number one is that professionally managed properties will reign. So the mom and pop and the VC, so the venture capital backed companies, I think that they will diminish. And when I say mom and pop, I really mean people that have just heard that there's a lot of money in the short-term rental market. They've slapped a property together. They've literally slapped furniture in there as well and then put it on the market. So we've already seen a lot of those properties actually in the downtown Indy area have already exited the market. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think there's also going to be massive consolidation, especially in the arbitrage area. So that Sonder and Domio that I mentioned earlier. So the companies that are renting a location and then they rent the property out, just because I think the economics of it only makes sense to do a massive consolidation. So for my model, my clients own the properties and then we do all the hosting and property management. So I did have my own short-term rentals. I actually sold those last year. So that's just how we do it. I also think that mastering cleaning is going to be a must moving forward, and that Airbnb is going to be a lot smaller, and they certainly will not go IPO this year. And then I think economically, we are going to surpass hotels far and above what we would have ever thought initially. And the reason is that we have some huge advantages over hotels. We have private entrances. For us, for my company, we already did virtual check-ins and virtual check-outs. We use a lot of technology and automation, so that's really going to be key moving forward as well. We don't have contact with our guests. We do maintenance in between visits in most cases. Our cleaning comes after our guests leave. We're less expensive. And then also there's so much lower turnover. You don't have nearly as many people in the property, in the bedrooms, in any of the rooms. And you're not going to be around a bunch of people, obviously staying in your own place. So for us, we have all single family properties. We do have one apartment, but that's only because my client owns the apartment building. So, and I just want to let you guys know too, all of the pictures in here, they're all pictures of properties that we host and manage. So you might think, well, why are people traveling? Why do people come to different cities? So for example, I'm all urban market. They are coming for sporting events. They're coming for healthcare. They're coming for university, weddings, funerals, birthday parties. All of those things are the reason that people are staying in vacation rentals in places that you might not think they normally would. So and also, of course, graduations and internships. So for us, we mainly cater to the business guests because we have a lot of amenities in our properties. But we also obviously do a lot of people that are coming for personal reasons too. Also, a big thing that we have going on is the medical. The other reason that people come is for concerts, for any type of outdoors activities, and then for any of the big attractions in your cities and states or counties as well. So what kind of neighborhoods do we look for? What's really good is something that has great character, popular, well-established, also top-rated restaurants. I mean, especially once people get out of quarantine, they're going to be wanting to go out. Shopping and nearby attractions are really big. Walkability is also a huge factor. As you guys know, there's a huge push towards people being more healthy and also for an easy commute. One of the things that we found is that people don't mind staying even 15 to 20 minutes outside of the city because if they don't have a vehicle, that's a pretty inexpensive Uber ride. So even if you're not right in the heart of a city or metropolitan area, as long as they can still get transportation, you're fine. For a non-urban type of short-term rental, it's a lot of the same characteristics, but one of the things more in the non-urban is you're looking for a quiet area or you want to be close to that ski resort or to the beach. So it's a lot of the same rules. The other thing that you want to be careful of with looking at short-term rentals is laws and regulations of wherever your property is located. We're really fortunate in the state of Indiana in that we only have a couple of House bills on the books, and they really protect us doing short-term rentals. So I would just encourage you, make sure that you look that up. If you're going to do short-term rentals in an apartment or a place that has a homeowners association, you just want to make sure that short-term rentals are allowed in that area. So always check your laws and regulations. And now we're going to talk about evaluating the house size and the layouts. So just a very general rule of thumb for short-term rentals is that you will gross twice what you would in a traditional rental. So if you were going to get $1,000, then you would gross $2,000 for a short-term rental. The nightly rates for a 1-bed, 1-bath versus a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath can be 4 to 8 times higher. So it's very dependent. We have properties that are just little studio apartments all the way up to a large 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. And we have success in all sizes of our properties. But what I will tell you at least for the urban market, we have a lot of conventions in the city of Indianapolis, and we make bank in our large properties for the different conventions and different sporting events going on because people want to stay together, and it's less expensive for them. But in our case, our rates are so much higher for the big events. So that's the other thing that you really want to pay attention to is wherever your short-term rental is, you want to know what's going on around that area and definitely change your nightly rates depending on that, because it can make a huge impact on your ROI or your return on investment. And also, seasons vary depending on your location. So for example, for Indianapolis, our high season is March through October, and then our low season is November through February. But that will be very dependent on where your vacation rental is. So just always keep that in mind, and you definitely want to have your higher prices in the high season. Also, just kind of a general rule of thumb, we take on a lot of properties that have been rehabbed. You want to make sure that there is a new hot water heater, or it's less than 10 years old, as well as for your HVAC. So for your heating, venting, and air conditioning, is that it's also new. And quality and workmanship is absolutely key. So for us, maintenance is our biggest expense on properties that have not been rehabbed correctly, or there has been shoddy workmanship. The reason that I say that you want to have a newer hot water heater or HVAC system is that it costs us so much money whenever those do go down. And the reason is because not only do we have a guest that we have to make happy and possibly have to refund them depending on what the situation is, but then also the property will be down for either a day or a couple of days, so it's off the market for that reason. So just make sure that you are maintaining these properties to the absolute best of your ability, because you will make more money, and if you're hosting for other people, your clients will make more money as well. So for some of the best ROI, the more full bathrooms, the better, the higher your ROI, so your return on investment. So our rule of thumb, what we do is we're okay with up to 2 bedrooms for 1 bathroom. But when we go to a 3-bedroom, you need at least 2 full bathrooms. And we have about 20%, we charge 20% more per night if we have that second bathroom. So one of the reasons is the fact that now staying in short-term rentals is such a huge benefit to companies that Airbnb actually has a whole segment, a whole division called AirBNB for Work. And while you might be okay, it's no problem sharing a bathroom with your family member or a good friend, but whenever you go to share a bathroom with a colleague, that's a whole nother story. So as many full bathrooms as you can get in your property, the better. One of the things that we're also seeing in the short-term rental market, and this is different even than when I first started, was that now you have with companies male and female that will stay in the same house. And so another advantage is if you can have some of your bedrooms and bathrooms on one floor and then some on the first floor or the second floor, or vice versa. So all those little things can really make a big difference in how much you can command a night for your property. We also, so the other big thing is we do have a lot of older properties that we host and manage for. So certainly you can take into account the character of the house and that type of thing. But I would just encourage you, the more full bathrooms, the better. There are additional monthly expenses for short-term rentals versus doing a traditional rent, so renting a property out on an annual basis. So they are short-term rental insurance. For us, I require all of our clients to carry it. Right now, it's just under 1.5 times more what a traditional policy would be. And the reason is because it's an insurance company and but they say that it accounts for vacancy, etc. There has been a decrease in the cost of the short-term rental insurance, and I expect that to continue to decrease just because of the popularity of it, and the insurance companies now have a lot more data to go by. Another expense is the consumable supplies, so toilet paper, paper towel. We provide locally roasted coffee in all of our properties, so those are additional expenses you need to keep in mind. You're paying for the utilities, mowing and snow removal, and then Wi-Fi. So for us, we do not have cable in any of our properties. We use all smart TVs, and that's because everybody has their own Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime video. So you don't need to have the expense of cable. And these are some of the most questions asked that we get. Security systems. I do not like the security systems. So even though we send out instructions to our guests, a lot of them don't read them. But we leave it up to our client, up to our property owner if they want a security system. We went through why guests come. Will guests have parties? The answer is yes. Our biggest issues really so far has just been people smoking pot in our properties, which is not, in the grand scheme of things, obviously that's nothing at all. What's the longest stay that we allow? we will allow people to stay with us a month at a time. One important thing to remember, and I don't know how it works in Canada, but for the city of Indianapolis, if somebody stays with us over 29 days, then they have what's called squatters' rights. Do you guys have anything like that in Canada? No? Okay. So technically, by the law, they can stay in our properties until we have to force them out, go through eviction and just all kinds of ridiculousness. But that's the way it is. So since you guys don't have anything like that, you're good. Also, the grade of the rehab, I'm going to show you guys some pictures of a rehab that we did, because we also run rehabs. But whenever you do a rehab, if you're going to rehab a property, you want to go as high as you can, because the ROI is there in our luxury properties. The type of insurance is a short-term rental. And then what I tell people is occupancy rate can be anywhere from 0 to 100%. So you just, once you get some reviews on your properties, that's the key. Once you get about 3 to 5 reviews, people know that it's a great place to stay and will continue to book. But still, whenever you're in low season, I just want to make sure that we are totally covered. So your occupancy can really be all over the place, and also dependent on weather. So evaluating statistics for profit loss. So this was one of the properties that we ran the rehab. In this case, our clients actually live in Las Vegas, Nevada. This was what the property looked like whenever they bought it, except for this was the kitchen. And you can see my contractors, they had already pulled out the kitchen cabinets on that side. So, and this was a bathroom, and the sinks were actually right in front of the windows. So, and they had mirrors over to the side of the sink. So clearly this would not work for a vacation rental. So this was the kitchen before, this was the kitchen after our rehab. This was the living room before and then after. And then that was the bathroom before and after. So in this case, our clients paid $180,000 for this house. And then the rehab ended up being just a little over $50,000. And these were the results. So for this case, technically it's a 5-bedroom, 2-bath, but I didn't want to sell it as that. So we made it a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And what we did with that, what would have been the 5th bedroom, is we turned it into, I don't have a picture, but we turned it into a casino room. So we had all kinds of casino chips. And I mean, you kind of felt like you were in Vegas. So I just wanted to show you guys, these are some gross revenue from, this is last year's data. And then, so you can see just the difference in our occupancy rate from 84% to 58% just in a 3-month time. So one of the things also, in June, we had to be down part of the month. And that was because in the rehab budget, there wasn't budget for the HVAC system, and the HVAC system went out. So, so that was a huge huge issue in our occupancy rate. But just to drive home the point on how important that is. Also, so this was my personal property. I had traditional tenants in here for 1 year. This was not what my property looked like whenever they moved in, just so you guys know. But this was what they left me with. And then we did a complete rehab. We totally redid the bathroom and made everything much better. And I can tell you that even we did this it'll be a year and a half ago. And if I had known even 6 months later what I knew, we would have done a higher upgrade of rehab in this property. Because again, the return on investment is there for the higher upgraded properties. And that was just our actual listing. We do a lot of construction consults, so we really get to have an impact on making the property better, not only if the person's going to do a short-term rental or if they end up selling the property on the retail market. And this is a duplex in the Indianapolis area. We have a lot of duplexes, and one of the things that I tell my clients is to make sure that they have a pass-through in the duplex. And it's kind of funny because this was the only pass-through, so from one side to the other, and this was upstairs, and it's so this picture doesn't do it justice because it's so tiny. This is the downstairs, and this was where I suggested my client put a true access to the other side. And the reason is because with a duplex, you actually get 3 listings because the guest can rent side A, side B, or the entire complex. So whenever they rent, or the entire property, when they rent the entire property, that's usually friends or family or colleagues, and they want that internal access to the other side. So there's just a whole host of insights that you learn, and tips and tricks to make the guest experience a lot better for a short-term rental, a vacation rental. I'm going to show you, this is one of our carriage houses. So it's what this means is it's a studio above an actual garage. And I put this picture in here for a reason, because when we first started, we had alcohol. We provided wine for all of our guests at this property. But this is where your laws and regulations and knowing this is very important. For the state of Indiana, if I provide alcohol for a guest, I would need my liquor license. And then also, if they were to get in an accident, I would be liable for it. So for us, we provide no alcohol for our guests whatsoever. Of course, guests are welcome to bring whatever alcohol they want. But so even something as, you might think you're doing your guests, a nice favor or doing a nice gesture, just make sure you know that. So I just want to, again, just to show you guys some of the revenue here for a carriage house. So this is like a studio. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath property. And these were last year's numbers. One of the reasons is we shut this property down in the wintertime. We actually just opened it back up. And that's because of the access to it. It's a little wonky, and we don't want to worry about snow and all kinds of stuff in the wintertime. So just know too that even if you do have a property that you have on for even a limited amount of time, you can still make some great numbers on it. This was one of our properties that we did not decorate this property, but this was just a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath property, and it's in a pretty hip, what has become a pretty hip neighborhood. But one of the reasons why this property was so popular for us was, again, because of that location was super, super stellar. So we did really, really good in this property, and we didn't have any maintenance issues either. This is one of our luxury properties, and you can see that we had quite a bit of difference in our monthly income and our owner revenue. One of the problems, again, you can see it in August. So August, our owner revenue was just $1,900 when the previous month was over $3,000. And this $1,900 again went back to, we had some major HVAC issues, so some ventilation issues, and this was a brand new build house, and we still had those problems. So just I just can't stress enough how important the maintenance side is of things. So just always keep that in mind. So one of the things is in your listings is to be very transparent. So if you are going to list properties on either Airbnb or VRBO, as well, we also do direct bookings, so that way people can come to our website and just book directly with us. Is you always want to be transparent. So what is the current state of their property? You have to watch the laws on what you can say about crime rates. What are the amenities features? You want to make sure to really highlight those. So one of the things that we do in some of our properties, we have what's called a VCS. So that's a virtual concierge service, and it's an Alexa, and we use this special program so that the guest can ask, how do I turn on the TV? Where's the closest restaurant? Where do I find the garage remote or the garage door opener? So you can do a lot of these really cool features that people love and will get you great reviews. And what great reviews translate into is the more you can charge per night. Also, what safety features are installed at the property. We're a huge, huge, huge proponent of the safety aspect of the properties. So we have carbon monoxide detectors, we have fire extinguishers. At least for the States, I always thought that fire extinguishers you just keep under your kitchen cabinet, but actually code is that the fire extinguisher needs to be hung visibly and 3 to 5 feet off the ground or off the floor. So that's just another aspect that you really want to look into. And then we also do ladders. If we have any of our properties that are over 1 story, we buy the ladder that goes out the window for however many stories up that house goes. So having those additional safety features are a huge help and will set your listing apart. How many guests can you safely accommodate? And then what are your business booking policies? So just make sure that you want to be as transparent as possible in this. We also highly recommend professional photography. So we use obviously all professional photography because you really want to highlight that property and make it look, make your guests know exactly what they're going to get whenever they come to town. It's kind of funny, when I first started in this, guests would say, oh, the property is exactly like the pictures, exactly like you described. And I didn't understand that because of course that's what our properties were going to be, but not all properties are like that. So again, just goes back to the transparency part of it. Also cleaning, especially cleaning now, even more than ever. Where to begin on that is property, your listing. So for us, we have a customized cleaning sheet in every property because all of the properties are a little bit different. And we also have a supply stock list. So letting our cleaners know how much of each supply is supposed to be on site at the property. You'll also, if you're going to go with a third-party cleaning company, you want to verify their certificate of insurance, and also to have standardized training and procedures for your cleaning staff and make sure that they know what that is. You want to do research and interview, obviously, reputable cleaning companies, and then always have multiple cleaning companies as well. So otherwise, that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, so it is very true for a lot of this. I did just want to let you guys know that we do have a university, so in different packages available for you. I'd like to invite you to follow us on any of our social media. So we're on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So we post a lot of information all the time, a lot of fun videos, and we share with you what we've done wrong and what we've learned and how to do things right and how to do things better. So it would just, again, just invite you to follow us. And then I will leave with you one of my quotes. I'm currently reading this book by Nassim Taleb. And the quote is actually, the first sentence is that wind extinguishes a candle and energizes a fire. So this is especially true for what's going on right now in the world. And so I really, just to kind of wrap it up, and I'll also open it up to any questions, that being in vacation rentals now is a fantastic time. I think we have a huge, huge advantage over hotels, motels, especially moving forward. So, I'd now like to open it up to any questions.
I have a couple questions. I'm actually a real estate agent from the Edmonton area, and I actually have very much looked into turning a couple of my rentals into Airbnbs. So the first question is are you, and again, I apologize, I missed the first 20 minutes. Are you transitioning some of your Airbnbs to maybe to help with the medical staff and, first responders right now that's happening? Because I'm under the impression Airbnbs are almost not going on at all right now. Is stereotypical Airbnb. Is that true?
It's very dependent on where your properties are. So for us in Indianapolis, we're still rocking and rolling. Obviously, we've seen a huge decrease in our vacancy rates, but we have people that are still traveling for business. We also have people that are here that are locals. Weekend before last, we had five of our properties were booked, and that's because they just needed someplace to go that was not the house that they were in. So you have that also, and I think that staycations, especially just as a financial impact, really gets set in from this COVID-19. I think you're going to see a lot more of staycations going on. So makes vacation rentals, local rentals a lot more popular as well.
For sure. Next, have you had anyone that has actually self-quarantined in one of your, because I hear that's the only thing that's happening in Edmonton is, in theory, they're booking them because they want to self-quarantine away from their family. Either because, they're actually sick or because they're sick and tired of their family. But has that happened on your end at all, or?
It hasn't, but what we are doing also, just so you know, we have one guest that she's in between properties right now. She sold her house and she's looking for a house. So she came March 31st. She's going to be with us at least 2 more months. I got a call yesterday from a lady that's also selling her property and is going to be with us for a couple of weeks. And then we do have another guest that's going to be checking in 2 weeks that's taking a break from her spouse. So she's planning on being with us for about 3 weeks. So yes, we don't have self-quarantine, but we have lots of other quarantining. Any other
questions, thoughts, comments while we're looking at it here right now? Obviously, there's, based on the panel that we've got here today, there's some great expertise in the room, and yet we're looking to always accelerate our own growth and our own education. Final thoughts?
A couple for locally, if you guys are looking to do local Airbnbs. So the city of Edmonton has required that all Airbnbs are now have business licenses. And that is going to restrict you a lot. In fact, if without COVID-19, I think Airbnb was going to get hurt in Edmonton simply because any Airbnb that was in a condo with any condo, management company, most of them state that you can't run a business out of a condo. They just usually that's part of the bylaws. And so look into the rules. I know, Elizabeth, you also brought up a duplex having to put like a wall between the two. Be careful with that. I believe that wouldn't be fire code where we are. I don't know if they'll let you put a wall between your two, because they have to put it like a cement barrier, a very strict fire code. And if you are damaging that, I don't know. Ben, you built your duplex. I mean, I don't think you could actually put a sharing wall because of fire code and whatnot. So again, just differences, and you touched to it, Elizabeth, that there is a fair bit of differences, but just be aware that some things are a little more lax than what Elizabeth was saying, and some things are actually a little more strict. So I've done a fair bit of research. I never pulled the trigger, but if you guys need someone local to pick their brain, I know someone that has, I want to say he's got about 30 units that he either owns or manages for Airbnb in the area. And yeah.
Okay.
Elizabeth, I just have one other question. And again, forgive me, I came in a couple minutes late, but I don't think you've gone into too much detail yet. I've actually got some clients across the country that provide housing, or they're an essential service that provides individuals that need to travel for the job. And so I'm finding that the companies themselves are actually also using Airbnbs to self-isolate or quarantine their staff that they need to ensure are clean and safe and healthy. And so that's another avenue, if it wasn't mentioned prior to me joining, that is great for people to utilize, is having companies have that access as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have your properties, definitely change up your hashtags right now to attract those different companies, letting them know that you can self-quarantine and that your house is available for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Elizabeth, to hear you talk about Airbnb always, and I've had the privilege of being able to listen to you for the better part of a year now as well, and to watch that development from what you're doing now to where you're going. And for those looking to reach out with her, obviously on the screen here right now, we can see where her tags are. For those that are going to watch the video in the future, they're going to be able to see the splash page with her social tags. Please reach out. She's very active on social media. She's open to answering questions. She lectures regularly as a member of the board for the Real Estate Investors Association in Indiana as well. And she has traveled all across the United States to lecture. And if I've got the right hunch, she'll probably be in Canada at some point talking about real estate sometime in the fall, maybe early winter as well. And we'll look to get more people involved at that point too. So for those that are joining us on a Syndicate Talks, and when it comes to real estate, first of all, feel free to reach out to Elizabeth, and inside of our organization as well. We have a great number of resources. Some of those have joined us on the call here today, and they're always available to answer questions, comments, and concerns that you may have, or how to get started, just even where to look and what to do. real estate is one of the most low risk, high hurt you investments you can make. In other words, chances are if you can physically touch it, you know where it is, like a house, for example, then you're probably going to be okay investing in it, but it's going to be exorbitantly expensive, and the mistakes are going to treat you terribly the moment you make them. They're going to cost you in time, money, they're going to cost you legally, and they may cost you the rest of your assets and resources. So while it's something that is easy to find, see, and touch, you know where the asset is. In other words, I've taken my money and I've put it here. That is not nearly enough. There needs to be a great deal of education that has to go in. And much like everything else you do when you're investing in life, information is key. Knowing is more than half the battle, as G.I. Joe would put it. Instead, it is everything to do with being able to win and succeed when it comes to real estate. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us on a Syndicate Talks for our panel today. And for everybody that gets a chance to watch this over the coming weeks and months, do not hesitate and always invest in education. You do not go wrong by finding the resources and the people that can help you to get further ahead. We've brought in another exceptional speaker today to talk to you about something that's really important and things that people have at least idly been curious about, never mind taking active steps to participate in as well. And again, it doesn't require a lot to get started, but it is very important that you invest in your education when it comes to it. Have a fantastic day. Elizabeth, thank you to the panel that was with us today. Thank you very much for sharing your time as always. And we look forward to seeing you all in the future. Have a great day.
Thank you.